We here at CCC Productions do not bow to the altar of quarterbacks simply for the sake of doing so. We know that a team's most valuable player can be anyone who performs at a high enough level to earn that moniker, and we will apply that sentiment in discussing each team's real MVP for the 2023 season. And just for fun, after we're done with all this, we're going to run through our picks for the playoffs. Thank you for joining us today. If you would consider subscribing to the channel for all sorts of content in both the sports and entertainment worlds, that would be greatly appreciated. On with the video. Arizona is a tough team to pick for because even at 4-13, it feels like they overachieved. We're going with second-year tight end Trey McBride, who with 81 catches had 30 more than anyone else on the squad. His pace over the last 10 games, where he was completely free from Zach Ertz's shadow, had him on pace for 112 on the season. He has a chance to be the centerpiece for the offense going forward. You know you've made a good free agency acquisition when the player in question steps in and immediately becomes your team MVP. Jesse Bates has been everything Atlanta could have wanted and more at the safety position. He provided excellent play in center field with 6 interceptions, including 1 returned for a touchdown, while making over 130 tackles on the season. Offensive coordinators need to know where he is on every play. Yes, Lamar Jackson is probably going to win NFL MVP, and this is not to say that he doesn't deserve it, but Baltimore's MVP is linebacker Roquan Smith. From the moment he was acquired last season, he was just like the Big Lebowski's rug. He really tied the defense together. The best player on the league's best unit, he is the queen on the chessboard, adept at stopping the run, defending the pass, and getting after the quarterback. He makes everyone around him better. Sometimes the quarterback simply is the team's most valuable player, and that is the case with the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen does it all for this offense, and yes, sometimes he does it too often, and the hero ball can backfire. He has proven this season and in others that he isn't part of a system. He is the system, accounting for over 4,800 yards of offense and 44 touchdowns. Imagining the offense without him certainly drudges up nightmares for all Bills fans. There wasn't much of anything to get excited about this season for the Carolina Panthers. A 2-15 record will do that, but Brian Burns, even with less stellar numbers than in years past, qualifies as this team's MVP. By default, no one on the offense can even be considered, and Burns led the team with 8 sacks and is the only person anyone could consider a serious threat on this team. Montez Sweat joined the Chicago Bears during the season, and his impact was such that he could have been this team's MVP. But over the course of the season, that has to go to cornerback Jalen Johnson. Breaking out in his 4th season, he has entered the realm of shutdown corner. Sure, he had 4 interceptions with 1 return for a touchdown, but he only allowed 2 touchdowns all year, while quarterbacks had a 50.9 passer rating against him. Simply outstanding numbers. Sack numbers aren't always indicative of a player's abilities, but in the case of the Cincinnati Bengals and their star pass rusher, Trey Hendrickson, they paint but a part of the picture. Hendrickson often finds his way to the football with a relentless motor, and was relentlessly consistent, notching a sack in every game this season but 2, with many of those sacks coming at the most opportune time for his team. He is the foundational piece on a talented defense. Sometimes these picks are just easy, and while the media slobbers over Joe Flacco, who admittedly has been a fun story, Cleveland's MVP is clearly Myles Garrett. 14 sacks, his 6th consecutive season in double digits, 17 tackles for loss, wreaking constant havoc all in the face of relentless double teams. He led the team with 4 forced fumbles and even had 3 passes defended. The Browns' defense is the catalyst for this team's success, and Garrett clearly leads the way. The thumbnail for this video gives this one away, and because the NFL media only recognizes quarterbacks in this context, it must be said that Micah Parsons is the one who deserves true consideration as easily one of the 5 best players in the league, period. Similar to Myles Garrett with 14 sacks and extra tackles for loss, while also wreaking havoc in the face of relentless double teams. But when it's needed, Parsons still has the ability to drop back into coverage as well. He could be split in two and be 2 Pro Bowl players. Even at a respectable 8-9, the Denver Broncos didn't have too many standouts. 2 defensive players made the Pro Bowl, but one who didn't is Alex Singleton. He is the team's MVP for his consistent high-level performance. His 177 combined tackles were 60% more than anyone else on the team. His 106 solo tackles were more than any other player's combined tackles, except for Josey Jewell, who only had 2 more. He is everywhere all at once for this defense. The Detroit Lions really emerged this season with many proper candidates for team MVP, but given his overall dominance, we're going with Penei Sewell. While Lane Johnson has long been the NFL's best right tackle, Sewell has surpassed him with his performance this season. He has an argument as both the league's best run blocker and its best pass blocker. He played every offensive snap for a 3rd straight season, and his most shocking stat is that he actually allowed a single sack. Many Green Bay Packer fans were ready to run this dude out of town in October, and now he's thought to be in place for at least the next decade. Quarterback Jordan Love is working with the league's most inexperienced pass-catching core as part of the league's youngest team, and he still surpassed 4,000 passing yards and 30 passing touchdowns. And these aren't simple dump-offs and screen passes. Dude ain't afraid to chuck the ball downfield to put added pressure on defenses. Someone else who isn't afraid to challenge defenses deep, and the only rookie featured in this list, the Houston Texans MVP, is quarterback CJ Stroud. 23 touchdown passes in 15 starts doesn't automatically jump out, but 8.2 yards per attempt and only 5 interceptions do. Moreover, he led the league in passing yards per game and lowest interception percentage. As a rookie, under a rookie head coach, without a fully intact offensive line for a team that only won 3 games last season. Quentin Nelson and to a lesser extent Ryan Kelly get all the pub for the Indianapolis Colts' offensive line, but emerging from their shadows as team MVP this season is Bernhard Raimann. It took a season for the Austrian-born 3rd-round pick, but he became a force this season. With a rotating cast of skill position players that saw nobody start all 17 games, Raimann was the anchor of the Colts offensive line that truly provided all their offensive success. It's a fun little fact to have 2 different players with the same name serve as an NFL team's MVP, but there's no denying edge rusher Josh Allen's impact on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, the team collapsed and missed the playoffs, but that does not fall on Allen. In a contract season, he racked up 17.5 sacks, made 66 tackles, and even nabbed an interception. His stellar play opened things up for Travon Walker on the other side, and serving notice that Jacksonville would be smart to re-sign him. Under normal circumstances, this award would default to Patrick Mahomes, but the Kansas City Chiefs were a different team this season, and their MVP was defensive tackle Chris Jones. He's dominated for some time now and was the rightful MVP of Super Bowl 54. Now in his contract year, he finally gets his recognition. 10.5 sacks from the interior and playing at a level that rivals Aaron Donald. He is the bulwark of the league's 2nd stingiest scoring defense. In an era where defensive linemen are rotated at a fairly high rate, the Las Vegas Raiders put their star edge rusher Maxx Crosby on the field for 95% of all defensive snaps, 1,081 in total. He rewarded them with 14.5 sacks, a remarkable 90 tackles, which was 3rd on the team, and a league-leading 23 tackles for loss. He did all of that with a relentless motor and a contagious spirit that makes him the easy pick for Raiders team MVP. It can be argued that he compiled stats over a few select games for a bad defense, but someone's gotta win this, and with 17 sacks, Khalil Mack is as good a choice as any for the LA Chargers MVP. Indeed, Mack had 2 or more sacks in 5 games, including 3 in a row, and 1 game where he had 6. He was also 4th on the team with 74 tackles, and he forced 5 fumbles. The Chargers were terrible, but this might have been the season that clinched Mack's spot in the Hall of Fame. Hey look, we've got another easy one. The Los Angeles Rams enjoyed a bounce-back season and made it back to the playoffs, and they were led by Aaron Donald. His stats are what they are, 8 sacks, 53 tackles, yada yada. He is simply, still, the most dominant force in the NFL. Double teams, triple teams, maybe the Thing will give blocking him a shot one day. He is the nexus of the Rams defense that gives opportunities to literally everyone else to make plays. Back-to-back easy ones, gotta love it. Wide receivers will never win the NFL MVP, but for the Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill was seen as a legitimate candidate even by the dullard-like media for a while. In an offense with speed to burn, the Cheetah is still the clubhouse leader. 119 catches for 1,799 yards and 13 touchdowns are eye-popping statistics, but for Tyreek it's just run-of-the-mill. The ending of Miami's loss to Tennessee when Tyreek wasn't on the field demonstrates his true value. He wound up only playing in 10 games for a team that missed the playoffs, but it doesn't matter. Justin Jefferson is the MVP for the Minnesota Vikings. In those 10 games, he still cleared 1,000 yards despite a weak running game and, at times, playing with a 4th-string quarterback. No corner in the league can consistently shut JJ down for any significant stretch of time. The collective passer rating of Vikings quarterbacks jumped more than 17 points when targeting JJ this season. It was a tough season for the New England Patriots in 2023, with an already weakened roster further decimated by injuries. But Christian Barmore did much to step up and prove himself as a foundational piece going forward. A hybrid defensive lineman who could stand to see the field just a little more, he led the team in sacks, quarterback hits, and pressures, barely trailing in tackles for loss. He also led all Patriot defensive linemen in tackles. A recent positive development in NFL coverage has been recognition of great middle or inside linebackers. Some players can get lost in the shuffle though, and Demario Davis of the New Orleans Saints is one such player. Sure, he made the Pro Bowl in 2022, but he didn't this season. That doesn't stop him from being his team's MVP. 121 tackles to go with 6.5 sacks in the middle of a top-notch unit earns all kinds of respect, even when it isn't often handed over the way it should be. He didn't truly break out until his 4th season, and now in his 5th season, New York Giants interior defensive lineman Dexter Lawrence did not slow down. His raw numbers, 4.5 sacks, 53 tackles, don't immediately jump out, but his presence on the field always does. He consistently shows the ability to dominate and move the pocket, even while facing vast amounts of extra attention from the offense. His size and speed combo was matched by precious few in the league. We're sticking with another interior defensive lineman from the 2019 draft who broke out last season and kept the train moving in this one. Quinnen Williams of the New York Jets. His sack numbers dropped from 12 to 5.5, but that doesn't begin to tell his story. 62 tackles, 39 of them of the solo variety, is incredible, playing from the inside while consistently facing double teams. The space he eats up aided linebackers CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams, his brother, to combine for 291 tackles. For a man who was regularly the subject of retirement rumors, the longtime center for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jason Kelce, continues to add to his already established Hall of Fame resume. Jalen Hurts gets a lot of the credit for how successful the tush-push play has been, and he deserves his share. But it's Kelce who gets that play off the ground. He is the best pulling center in the league and has an argument as the greatest ever. And across 1,100 plus snaps, he allowed but a single sack this season. Another easy pick and another player who probably wrapped up his spot in Canton this season. The Pittsburgh Steelers MVP is TJ Watt. Ho-hum, just another 19 sacks to lead the league for the third time, including 6 games with at least 2. He also forced 4 fumbles, recovered 3 of them, scored 1 of those, while defending 8 passes and picking up an interception to boot. He's one of the few players in the league that can shift the balance of a game with his play alone. Now we arrive at the other one that was given away by the thumbnail. In the San Francisco offense, what happens away from the ball is more important than what happens with the ball. And no NFL player was better in 2023, with or without the ball, than left tackle Trent Williams. He missed 2 games this season and was banged up in another. Guess what? The 49ers lost all 3 of those games and averaged more than 14 fewer points in those games than they did in the others. Great pass blocking? How about not allowing a sack all season? Great run blocking? Check out how many times number 71 leads the way deep downfield. Trent Williams isn't just the 49ers MVP. He is the rightful MVP of the entire league. This was a tough call as Devin Witherspoon lit it up in his rookie season. But for the Seattle Seahawks, we're going with wide receiver DK Metcalf. 66 receptions doesn't immediately impress, but 1,114 yards and just under 17 yards per reception do. His average depth of target is 12.8 yards. His average yards before making the reception are 11.3 yards, and his average yards after the reception are at 5.6 yards. A befitting combination of numbers for a guy who looks like he was built in Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory. It's one thing to stuff the stat sheet, and it's another to be really good at everything you do. Tampa Bay Buccaneers safety Antoine Winfield just happens to do both. It's outright astonishing that this dude didn't make the Pro Bowl when he was probably the best safety in the entire league. 122 tackles, 3 picks, 12 pass defenses, a league-leading 6 forced fumbles, 4 recoveries, and 6 sacks. He's like Bugs Bunny playing every position on a baseball field, the clear MVP of the Bucs. For a running back to be a team's MVP, he has to transcend his offensive line and his offense as a whole. No easy task, but Derrick Henry does that and has been doing that for a long time for the Tennessee Titans. A down year for Henry? Most would take 1,167 rush yards and 12 touchdowns. He led the league in carries for the 4th straight season where he didn't miss significant time, and still strikes more fear into would-be tacklers than any other player in the league. Curses to you, Washington, for being last alphabetically. No offense to the Commanders' team MVP, but offensive lineman Samuel Cosmi is probably our least inspiring selection. He had a solid year for a terrible team, playing every single snap while only allowing a single sack and only being called for 1 holding and 2 false start penalties. For a little while this season at least, the Commanders' offense was humming. Samuel Cosmi was the main reason why. Oh, I'm sure there are those who are going to disagree with lots of these. I'd honestly love to hear about all of that in the comment section below. If you liked the video, and maybe even if you didn't, please feel free to give it a like and to share with some friends. And we would never say no to someone who wants to subscribe. Time for me to add to the madness and make my playoff picks. In the AFC, Buffalo and Kansas City should have little problem getting out of the wild card round, to be joined by Cleveland. Green Bay can beat Dallas, but I won't pick a 7 seed over a 2 seed until I see it done. Detroit and Tampa Bay to maintain home field advantage. I like Buffalo to finally beat Kansas City in the playoffs, and in a shocker to many, I see Cleveland beating Baltimore, a vengeance 28 years in the making. Dallas again fails to make an NFC Championship game, with Detroit heading to San Francisco for that game. Buffalo over Cleveland in the AFC title game, and San Francisco losing the NFC title game for a 3rd straight season. Yeah, Buffalo versus Detroit in the Super Bowl. It's what I picked before the season, and I'm sticking with it. Thank you for watching, everyone. Oh, Buffalo to win it. And I hope you have an awesome day.